So I will go about, my daily life now, and contrary to what anybody may think of me, who is just an outside person watching this guy, I have a message for you. You don't know anything about me. You don't know anything about me. You don't know what I have done with my life. You don't know what education I have. You don't know what skills I have. I'm not complete with it all. I'm not done. But it still matters, and I don't have to publicly defend myself. I created a trading course, okay, a stock trading course, okay, and I've progressed so much that even though one of my last major options trade, I lost like $2,800. I was still learning. I placed a zero. I was selling options contracts, okay, to capitalize off of their rise in value, okay, but there's no intrinsic value on a contract if you're not holding the underlying shares. There's a term for that. I can't think of it right now. That type of trade. I'm not sure if that's a specific type of trade or not. But there's nothing wrong with it. It's just like when you are when you're selling contracts, you also have the option to you can buy covered calls. For instance, and you can and what that means is when you're holding the underlying stock, let's say you're holding 100 shares, and you buy one contract of that stock, of that stock's option. Okay, that is a derivative, because it is the options fundamentals are a derivative of the underlying stock. So you can buy covered calls and you can do all kinds of things. You can do all kinds of trades with options. You can sell those covered calls back to the market if they become more profitable with the intrinsic value. And you can sell contracts to the market. Okay, so and then when you have a buyer, you're obligated to sell your underlying shares, because when a person exercises that contract, they are buying your shares, so you better have them. If not, you're going to pay for it. So with your account, with your funds or whatever, the brokerage will do a margin call, whatever, liquidate your funds if you don't do it yourself, your stock. So you can't go into options trading and not know what you're doing. It's not that I didn't know what I was doing. I had missed a small detail. I was doing what I shouldn't have been doing. I was trading when I was tired, and there was one detail about options that I didn't know. One detail about options that every investor should know. And you don't learn this paper trading. You learn this experience trading. You can do a lot of reading. You can go through all of the lessons. That's probably a good idea. So you should probably go through all the lessons you so you don't ever end up in a situation um, like I did. And it wasn't that I was too hasty. I don't think. I mean, I may have been, but I can be a quick learner when I'm interested in something. When I finally decide, okay, I'm going to sit down and learn this, I learn it, and I sometimes learn it fast. Um, but I sold the contracts I was holding, the calls back to the market, because they had increased in value, and I'm like, this is freaking great. Like I would have made like a 30% profit, like, or whatever, like a huge profit or whatever it was, and I was like, I can't believe this, you know. But there was a zero bid, so to this day I don't fully understand why the demand would increase. I'm thinking because there were call options. Um, I'm trying to figure out why the value increased if nobody was willing to buy them. Because that's what happened is they sold them on a zero bid when the value increased. Um, and I'm thinking it could do with certain. It could have a thing to do with certain fundamentals like Vega. Um, Things that happen near the maybe near the end of the day where market makers are pricing in things in regard to contracts like the Vega would be it's like a measurement of volatility but priced in anticipation of that stock's volatility. So if you have like an implied volatility of a certain percentage um, year over year, um, but the Vega above that implied volatility is like if it's like really high, um, let's go really low. Let's say that it's really low compared to normal. So that like let's say you have a let's say you have a 38% implied volatility. That means it is 30% lower than it normally is, or that it would be over the uh, past year over year calculation, I believe, or the past year. Um, that means it is that it occurs 38% of the time that it's at that volatility rate. So it's only at the current market's volatility 38% of the time. You're expecting a bounce back. That means in regard to Vega, let's say you have a Vega of like 2 points or whatever, 2 percentage points. Um, you're going to want to price that in to the anticipated movement because Vega is like it could go either direction, right? So depending on what you expect or anticipate in regard to the market's price, and that's when I went and studied all of this after I took that hit. So that might have been an impact of Vega. And then you've got Rho, which the institutional investors and like the hedge funds look at, and they calculate or whatever. So in other words, a person like me or an individual investor, or like you, if you're an individual investor, you're not really too concerned about Rho. You're more concerned about Vega, things that immediately impact you for pricing into the next options contract price for the next day. So what I was probably looking at could have been something after hours or whatever, something ridiculous where the price was anticipated to rise for that contract and be worth something, but people weren't willing to buy it. Does that make sense? They weren't willing to buy it because they were already holding it. Or I mean, it was near expiration, and those that were already holding it were the only ones that had any kind of value. But if it was near expiration, it would have been worth institutional investors to I'm thinking buying or shorting now. So short those contracts or short the same strike by buying high. And expecting that immediate drop. So that price could have come from something like that. And those contracts for that period weren't on the market, but they were going to come on the market here pretty soon. Something like that. It could be anything like that. And you have to consider that the shares are on the market too. So the contract may have risen in price because of a technical scenario, because of a technical fundamental. And the contracts are still worth something, even if they're near expiration, if people like me mess up. Because if I then do exactly what I did, and there are no bidders, people aren't willing to pay anything for it, but I go ahead and sell those contracts back to the market at a zero bid, I got a penny back for each contract. As a courtesy, I had to call the brokerage of, hey, I messed up. I'm relatively new at options still. They had explained to me over and over and over why this wasn't a scam. Until I got it, slowly. And I even understood it even more, well after. It took me a while to understand that. So, but now I get it. And now I'll never make the same mistake. Probably not. I'm always going to remember that hurt, that ouch, That was like $2,800 gone. Took a nosedive instantly. I had done a pretty good job, climbing up. But, it's not the end of the world, and I'm sitting here acting like it is, but what I'm experienced is to be frank, I'm a little traumatized because I was under a lot of stress at the time. You're not supposed to trade when you're in a high stress environment. You're not supposed to trade when you're not ready to trade. So I'm still learning how to be a good trader. So let me explain something. That wasn't just a $2,800 loss. That was a $2,800 investment in my education. So do I feel like a champion right now? Yeah, I do. I do. But what gets depressing is when there are people that I try to engage with out there that don't understand. That don't understand the value of that. Like my own family. That's good, son, but what are you doing with your life? What have you done? Etc., etc., etc. Haven't talked to me like that in a long time, in a while. Because I think they get it. You know, we're all on our own path. And when your family members grow, you know, and get to doing their own thing, others get to realizing, well, this person has learned their own lessons now. I cannot worry so much. I hope, you know. I cannot worry about this person so much. I can rest at night knowing that if this person is my family member, loses everything around them, they've gained enough wisdom to get it all back, no matter the cost. Because they care about their lives, you know. So I've been spending too much time caring about what you think of me, and I shouldn't be doing that. Caring what other people think about me, caring about the broken society, how messed up it is, how I'm so pissed off that nobody wants to change it, nobody wants to join me and change it, you know. Nobody wants to jump in and hold these people accountable. Everyone just wants to watch them keep doing it. It's not getting me anymore because I can't force you to see what I do. And these politicians, they're not doing their jobs, right? They should be telling you that you have rights and that you need to know them. And they should be telling you, instead of encouraging you to go out in the streets and protest peacefully, yeah, go ahead and protest peacefully, but they should also be telling you what's going on and that you should know your rights and that you don't. Because you're not acting like you do. When you're out there just protesting in the streets all the time, you're not doing anything any better or anything any different than I am. When I'm just sitting here complaining, etc., etc., etc. But I have figured out one thing: nothing's going to get done until you hold these people accountable on paper. On paper. And until you get into a courtroom, the people, yeah, that's right, the people get to do that. We get to petition our government for redress. And not just redress, not just for money. We get to petition our government, period. That's our First Amendment. I get to look at a public servant that I disagree with and say, I think you're breaking the law, sir, madam. You're coming to court with me. That's right. I get to do that. But there's also a constitutional amendment where you can't sue another state. It doesn't say anything about holding an individual accountable. In other words, the state of Oregon can't sue the state of Texas. So, as far as I understand, we would need, I don't know if it's like need permission. I have to go back and read that, but I think there's a clause somewhere that a state can't be sued without permission, or is that the federal government? See, these are the things that we all need to know. So over time, after all these things have happened to me, so you can sue the federal government for wrongful death or harm, etc. And that's called a not a Bivens action. That's for a civil suit against the federal government, but a tort claim. There are certain things that are called tortious acts. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be suing the NSA. Now, what do I mean when I say that? I mean I forgot to appeal or got so overwhelmed by the situation that I didn't see that I had to appeal. I didn't see that it was necessary to appeal. I didn't learn the things that I know now, that I saw, that I actually had a reason to appeal what the NSA had said to me, because what the NSA had said made no sense. I didn't see that I have the legal right, and now a reason, to challenge the NSA in a courtroom. I didn't have the knowledge that I know now, that if a judge tries to then defer to executive authority, that I have the power to say, no, that's not happening, Your Honor. Sorry, with all due respect. Nice shirt. But could you look at that in your chambers, please? That's the power that you have. Did you know that? Yeah, it's illegal for a judge to defer their duties to interpret law to the executive branch. And that's what the NSA, the FBI, and the CIA don't want you to know. All those three-letter friends. You have more power as an American citizen than you realize. And if we were all to know our rights, we will get every fucking thing we want from this government. Guess why? Because they serve us, not the other way around. Did you know you can go up to a police officer and ask them questions and halt them lawfully and ask them to come over? Because they are your public servant. And that if they disobey, you can complain to their sergeant. Depending on how you handle the situation. Even if an officer refuses to display their ID to you, that officer may get fired. They have immunity, but not complete and total immunity. A police department can be sued, but I think that has to be by a Department of Justice, not by an individual. And as it pertains to criminal charges in the line of duty, if they can't just, commit a crime and say, so there isn't, I think it's called, what is it? A certain kind of immunity. Not de facto immunity, but qualified immunity. As an officer or as an agent of the law, as a federal agent, whatever, as well. They have qualified immunity because within the scope of their duty, that if anything happens, in other words, it's the agency's fault. So it would be the police department's fault if an officer were to physically assault somebody. Then you can, in the court, sue the police department. But it would be under, I don't know enough about law, but it may be under a Bivens action. I'm not sure. Bivens claim. But there are also certain things that if an officer does and it's determined to be not something that should have been performed within the scope of their duty, they can receive criminal charges. And it's happened. Officer Derek Chauvin. Right? So, I'm going to tell you, and here's the reason why I'm so frustrated. And the reason why I can't stop thinking so much is because I know that there are things that you don't know. While you are sitting around playing your video games on your PC and living your life, going to your work, going to your job just to eat, sleep, breathe, shit, and die. You're getting an education, that's great, but you still live in a fucking ant farm. You still live in an ant farm and you're still living to be told what to do. You're being told, obey. Under our terms of service, though. Now, how is that fair? You may say, well, I don't have a problem with it. I get to live my life. That's fine. But just wait until something like what was happened to me happens to you. Well, I don't have to worry about that because I don't get involved in these kind of things. Well, that's fine. That's fine. But there's a broader issue going on. And here's why that matters for you. I'm going to explain why you should care about that. Because it doesn't just happen to me. It happens to other people. And the power that these people abuse, corporations, people within our government, whether it be politicians, whether it be a corrupt president, the power that is being abused, you're not taking back. And it's running out of control to the point that eventually you're not going to have these rights. And this is not going to be the same America. So I went through a path in life, okay, and I've done some great things, you know. I have fucked up here and there. I have had issues here and there. I've had my own personal battles. I've had my own personal struggles, okay? I've had my ups and downs just like everybody else. But in the process, I have made some gains, okay? Let's talk about it in terms of stock, okay? I made some gains. All right. I have other things going on for me that the public doesn't know about. And I don't have to tell you. I don't have to explain it. I don't have to justify myself. Am I just sitting on my ass all day? No. I'm fucking working smarter, not harder. And eventually I might be worth millions of dollars because of it. So don't fucking look at me sideways.